I'm going to start the meeting. We're waiting for one or two more members, but we do have a quorum. Most important is, can you hear me out there? You can? Okay, good. Welcome, everybody. Thank you, Jesse and Janine and Hartley House for letting us meet here. It's an important meeting tonight. We have one basic item, but we have other items to discuss, but this is very important. So thank you for coming. We're going to have a presentation from Department of City Planning. Mr. Stephen Johnson is on the hot seat tonight, so we welcome him. You got to be nice to him now. I will try anyway. And then we'll have a discussion by committee members and I ask questions. Then you guys got questions, go to you. Got people calling in perhaps that want to ask questions. And then I think this committee may decide to have a vote or not, see what they say. I'm so sorry, my name is JD. I'm the co-chair of this committee along with my colleague Paul Devlin, who's the other co-chair, and committee members. Christopher LeBron. Frank also again.
Laura Freeman.
Andrew Miller.
Rachel.
So feel free to come up and use them after the meeting. Don't like the questions. Stephen, thank you so much for coming tonight and welcome. And the floor is yours. Wait, I'm sorry. Oh, wait, there's more. There's more.
Sorry. Just for public meeting regulations, we have to read this introduction. So greetings and welcome to the Hills Kitchen Land Use Committee. The Manhattan Report 4 has adopted a hybrid meeting policy whereby we will be both in person and virtually. All community meetings will require an in-person forum to come to order and conduct business. Board members are expected to attend meetings in person unless they have a disability or an extraordinary circumstance as defined by the New York State Open Meetings Law. Excused committee members and members of the public will still be able to participate virtually. Committee members who are joining via Zoom must leave their cameras on. We encourage members of the public to join virtually. The Manhattan Community Board 4 hybrid policy can be found on our website. Tonight's meeting is being recorded and is currently live streaming on YouTube.
And I want to say one thing about tonight's meeting. This is about and elephant in the room or casino, you know that, but Paul.
Yeah, so this is the text amendment regarding the new use group category called casinos. And we know that, as you said, the casino was a hot button issue for a lot of us. So we want to hear everybody's thoughts and discussions on this topic, but this is a zoning text amendment on that. So our conversation is going to be sort of about the proceedings and process of the zoning text amendment. We are in discussions with having other open forums about the casino topic itself. So there will be other opportunities to have conversations about casinos, the impact on our community, positive, negative, even though, we may get presentations, we may not, but we are aware as leadership that we're going to have to do something about this. So we don't have a board position right now on casinos, and this tonight isn't necessarily a spot for us to do that because this is about zoning text. But we will be opening up for other conversations later. And one final housekeeping note, we do have to go until 9 p.m. So let's be conscious of that.
Thank you, Paul. I want to welcome another committee member, Mr. Aristucci, and special guest tonight. We're honored to have the co-chair of the Chelsea Davis Committee and the chair of Board 4. Chair of Board 4. That's Jessica. Speak up. I'll speak up more.
Yeah, it's the heating system that's the noise. Yeah.
Stephen Johnson, welcome.
Thank you very much. My name is Stephen Johnson.
And you're in person. I'm
here in person. I don't know if you can see me, but at least you all can see me. I'm with the Department of City Planning. I've been with the department for quite a long time. JD's asked me to say a little bit about what the CPF zoning resolution does and what text amendments are, and I'll get to that. So the gaming facility text amendment is a citywide zoning text amendment to allow a gaming facility use in certain districts in the city. Now, the zoning resolution governs how buildings can be built, developed, the height, the setback, how many parking spaces, all those details. And there's basically 3 districts, residential, commercial, manufacturing, and there's uses that can go into each district. Obviously, a residential district is predominantly residential. Commercial districts are predominantly, but they can be mixed use and et cetera for manufacturing. So this text amendment is to allow the gaming facility use into zoning resolution for the first time. Currently, casinos, racetracks, gaming facilities are not permitted use anywhere in the city. So this is just to add that use into certain commercial districts and manufacturing districts. That's C4, C5, C6, C7, C8, and M1, M2, and M5. They're not being proposed to be in residential districts. Now, the state defines a gaming facility as the premises approved under the state gaming license, which includes a gaming area and any other non-gaming structure related to the gaming use, such as hotels, parking, restaurants, and some other types of facilities. Some of these facilities proposing like a small convention center or a small arena or things like that nature to be within the gaming facility use. So gaming facility, the term is a broader term. So we're not saying racetrack, we're not saying casino, but the gaming facility is the gaming use along with these other related uses. So the purpose of the text amendment would facilitate the development and operation of up to 3 gaming facility licenses throughout the downstate region. And it's within a new state-defined citing and review process, which I will get to later on in the presentation. And the proposed text would then deem the gaming facility as a permitted, allowed use in the ZR if approved by this process, which I'm going to go over. So could I get the next slide, please? So the text amendment is the result of a January 2023 announcement by the state to solicit up to 3 proposals for gaming facilities. In 2013, New York State had a referendum that was approved by voters of the state to have 7 licenses in the state. Subsequent to that, 4 were built upstate New York, in around the Catskills area and around that area. And so there's 3 remaining licenses. So at the beginning of the year, the state released this document, request for application to develop and operate a gaming facility. Now this outlined a process to cite these facilities and to review these facilities for 3 licenses in the region, the downstate region, which is New York City, Long Island, Rockland, Putnam, and Westchester County. So there are other facilities that are being proposed, not just in New York City. But obviously, I'm here just to talk about New York City. Sorry, audience. So part of the thing that they did with this announcement in January 2023 is to establish this new siting and review process, which I'll get to in a second. But for New York City, there's no gaming facilities in New York City. There is Aqueduct and Resorts World in Queens. That is allowed because it's on state-owned property. That's the only reason why that's in the city. New York City had OTV sites from the 70s. There's still OTV sites throughout the state with their own corporations, but the New York City one went bankrupt in 2010, and there are no longer any more those types of casinos. Next slide, please. So this is a map. It's a little fuzzy on the screen, but just to show you what the state gaming commission controls in the state. So these are all the facilities. You have up here, it's a little hard to read, it says gaming, that's their term, not mine. And those are spread around the city, around the state. But the thing to know most of all is right here. So this orange one and purple one is Aqueduct and Resorts World. Resorts World is fully automated. There's nobody in a cheap tux, giving you cards, playing blackjack with you or anything like that. It's all automated. It's not what I don't go gaming or gambling, but it's not what I envision James Bond would approve of, but, that's what's there. Number two is the Belmont Elm. That's a site, and and this is Concord right there. So those are the ones that are in the downstate region. Next slide. So as I mentioned, they established this new gaming facility process. And this is what it's just a community advisory committee. And the community advisory committee consists of 6 members. So this group will review each application. One of the things that's a little bit confusing, I'm not trying to confuse anyone, but this is a state-led process. So I don't work for the state, but I'm up here having to discuss what the state is proposing to do. If you have inquiries on the slide, you can contact Kristen Buckley. She's with the Gaming Commission. There's a phone number and a email. So I'm describing some of the state processes as much as we know in the city. And we are in contact, the city planning department is in contact with the state on some of these issues, or most of these issues. So there's 6 people in the community advisory committee that's going to be reviewing each application related to wherever the proposal is located. So any proposal that's located in this community would have somebody, the governor, the mayor, Assembly member Tony Simone, Senator Hoylman, Borough President Levine, and Council member Botcher will be on that CAC. So the CAC, the idea is the CAC will be reviewing applications. Any application that's in their district, you currently have 2, and I think we'll only have 2. There'll be open meetings, a hearing, a chance to make comments on whatever proposal is, and in order for the process to advance, the CAC votes on it. There has to be a 2/3 majority to approve the building, the development, and then that would then go up to the Gaming Facilities Location Board, which then would review whatever applications are reviewed by all the CACs. So for example, there's 9 proposals in New York City. If the CACs don't approve any, no applications from New York City are going. If they approve 5, they might only approve 1, whatever's approved goes to the CAC to then look at all the regional proposals, including Long Island, etc. And then they'll make a determination on what they think are the most viable proposals. And these are the 4 things that they'll be reviewing. Economic activity obviously is a major issue for gaming facilities. When they cited the 4 upstate, they talked about, relieving property taxes, job generation, economic revenue, etc. And then local siting impacts related to environmental work, workforce enhancement, and diversity framework. So that's what we have for the gaming facility process. Next slide, please. So the text amendment. So the purpose of the text amendment is to facilitate the state's casino proposal enacted by the state legislature in 2022, as described in that document, the request for applications that they released, that's on their website for 2023. They have information on the state's website. You should go there if you want to get into the details of what's being proposed. For example, each application is worth $1 million. Who's ever, it's the fee to apply. And then who's ever chosen is I think there's a $500 million commitment, and from that, whoever receives the license. So in order to facilitate this, we're proposing this text amendment to add the gaming facility use group into use group 8 into the zoning resolution, and then to permit that use in TR. So the text amendment would allow New York City to be considered as a possible location. It doesn't approve any location. It's just bringing it down home to you guys. So you can consider the 2 applications, and the CAC with those members can consider the gaming facility application and then a vote on it. It's restricted to these areas in here, and I'll have a map later, I think soon, to show you where those are. So the gaming facility license is only, the text amendment is only linked to the 3 licenses. So if in 10 years, some developers like, I want to put a new gaming facility in Staten Island, you can't do it. It's only for these 3 licenses. It's linked to the state legislature action for the 3 licenses. So one of the concerns that I've heard is that people think, you know, in any C4 district anywhere in the city, they're going to pop out. You can't, because there's only the 3 licenses. You'd have to have a whole new statewide referendum. People would have to vote on it, go through this whole process again, and then we would have to have a new text amendment. If New York City wanted, we'd then have to write a new text amendment to permit it. The text amendment includes the non-gaming uses, eating and drinking, hotels, etc. And then as approved by the gaming commission at the time of the initial licensure shall be deemed to have satisfied zoning, applicable regulations for the resolution. So could I get the next slide, please? So, as I mentioned, the text amendment only applies to gaming facilities licensed by the state, which is the 3. The text amendment does not apply to any future licenses by the state. It has to be approved by the Community Advisory Committee. It then has to be approved by the Gaming Facilities Location Board. So like I said, if they get 20 applications, there's only 3 licenses. But those applications have to get through their own CS process. And you have to comply with local zoning regulations. I'll talk more about that on the next slide. And then this text amendment does not apply to any future modifications. So the example that I've been giving is, say there's an application, it's approved with a hotel, you know, a 500 room hotel and a 500 space parking garage. It's built, it's succeeding, and then they're like, okay, we want another 500 parking spaces and another hotel, another 500 keys. They have to come back to city planning for that because that was not approved by the CAC, and that was not approved by the Gaming Facilities Association Board. So that's how it kind of narrows things down, and then that again comes to the city planning and for those modifications. Next slide, please. So here's the location of the 9 facilities. There's 5 in Manhattan. In this area, it's the Western Rail Yards. And the Hudson Yards proposal I have here. There's 2 in Midtown, 2 Times Square, and Saks Fifth Avenue building, Freedom Plaza by the UN. There's 1 in Fair Point Park and Golf Course, Willis Point, the existing aqueduct, and then Brooklyn, Coney Island has a proposal. I was just out last week presenting the exact. So one thing I wanted to mention, there's quite a variety of issues with each one of these proposals. Just to take a couple, for example, Saks and the Times Square 1515 Broadway, they're already built, they're existing buildings, right? So they do not have to go through any additional actions at city planning. They have a smaller footprint. Some people might like that. They're more restricted in what they can do because everything's already built. Other projects, you know, they're on parkland. They have other actions they need in addition to this text amendment. Text amendment says all the things that you're proposing, if you get the licensure, are approved under zoning, as approved by the CAC and the Gaming Facilities Litigation Board. These actions, and then the Western Rail Yards also, they have additional actions with the city that we're working on now. So for example, the obvious one is Willis. They've announced a scoping hearing on December 21st, I think. They're on parkland, there is no zoning district. They have to demap parkland and map the zoning district. You might have to expand ramps in and out of the area. And it's a completely different neighborhood. So you can see how these are completely different from Midtown Manhattan, different impact. So the Western Rail Yard, they've had a previously approved site plan. So if they're going forward with the gaming facilities proposal, they would have to come back to you or Euler in order to get that approved. And it's the same for these other actions, 4. Western Rail Yards, and then the ones in the outer boroughs. They have extra actions that are ULURP actions. So each of those communities will get a review, ULURP review of those separate actions, is demapping, mapping the zoning district, changes to the existing site plan. Next slide, please. So just to wrap this up, it's a citywide zoning text amendment. And these are the areas where you can see, sorry, I pointed this out earlier. The yellow is the C4 through C8 districts and the M1, 2, and 3. So these are the only areas that we're proposing, but they're proposing maybe facilities, and they all happen to be C4 through C8 zoning districts. There's not any proposed in manufacturing. So there's 3 licenses, gaming facilities, and other non-gaming uses. Feel like somebody smoking. As an approval by the gaming commission via the gaming facility location board, and then CACs shall be deemed to have satisfied applicable zoning regulations in the zoning resolution, and the text amendment only applies to a gaming facility license approved by the state during this particular previously approved legislative process. So at that, take any questions that you might have.
Stephen, thank you. I'm sure there will be some questions, but just for clarification. This text amendment from the city, correct me if I'm wrong, is essentially saying it's the CHC, those 6, say it's okay. The gaming commission is okay. Say that it's okay. And in other words, there's no community ULURP process.
The community process is during the CAC review. So
The CHC is the mayor of those 6 people.
your council member,
There is no public review
No
process.
public review. I think that's important to state.
it's not a ULURP process,
It's not a ULURP process.
but it is a public review process. There's open meetings law, and they're supposed to have public hearings, public meetings related to the design.
So they're hearings, but no ULURP process.
It's not the city planning ULURP process.
Yeah, it's not a public review process that goes from community board or president to city planning commission to city council, and having all those levers and levels of government that shape or change a proposal. That would not exist with this text amendment. And in fact, the text amendment were not proposed. There'd have to be a proposal on each individual site to permit gaming.
Each individual proposal would have their own process.
Correct.
And go through ULURP, and that would take a very long time. And with what the state has given us with their schedule, we need to be more efficient and move quicker. And we thought this was the best way to do it, with the understanding that 4 of the projects also have a ULURP process. And that also we thought, if we go through all of this at the city level, and there's 9 applications, and then the CACs say no to all of them, then we just, wasted everybody's time, which is also why the state.
In the central business district, right?
Wait, I just wanted to make sure that's clarified. Thank you, Joe, so everybody understands what it is that we're doing. Before I open the questions, I just have one question, and then I'm gonna speak to Jessica. If it occurs, there's just one question.
Sure.
I'm sorry to phrase it like this, but I'm trying to understand. City planning, we are a community board.
That's right.
We have a mandate to go through a public process. City planning is coming to us and saying, vote against going through the public process. I would ask Jesse, can we legally do that?
Say again, I'm sorry, was second.
I would like you to ask corporate counsel at the VP's office if we are legally allowed to vote against our mandate to have a public process. So we can find out.
I mean, you can certainly vote against the text amendment. You can vote against any proposal for a gaming facility.
No,
No, you aren't legally, we can do that. I don't know, and Jesse can find out, but anyway, I want to open it up first as a courtesy to Champion Rogers, who has joined us, and then to my brother, Jessica.
Thank you. It's not in my name, but I do appreciate it. We, I think are interested in hearing your concerns of this committee, seeing as this is gonna mean, it's gonna impact the entire city, but it's not just this district. But I think the clarification on you are really important, and it's more a comment than a question that I think what we're beginning to hear is that we do not want to lose the opportunity to have a real direct process, which this board and all of those in the neighborhood have an opportunity to reflect on the proposal and find a way. I hear the issue of efficiency and timeline, but it would be interesting, and maybe this question, do you have alternative suggestions that are lining up process, community review, and a timeline that allows the state to meet its objectives?
The state has not given us that, and they haven't indicated that they will. So if the state came out and said, you have 5 years or 4 years, perhaps we can do that, but they've already proposed this at the beginning of the year. So we've already gotten through the entire year. And this is the process that we have figured out how to do with ULURP for the text amendment. And then the casino community advisory committees would then review in their communities where they. So we kind of think we're saying that these are duplicative processes. I understand it's not the exact same process the city planning uses for ULURP, but you have your council member that you elected, you have your state assembly member, state senator, Wellman and Simone, and your VP, in addition to the mayor and the governor.
So one follow-up question on that. Does the CAC outline, and forgive me, I haven't been part of the CAC process before, does it outline the points you mentioned, maybe the hold a hearing, or they should hold a hearing, is that defined what that process is for ensuring there is community input?
Yeah, so if you go online, the request for applications for development of a gaming facility on the gaming commission website, they have a document. And it says that they'll solicit comments from communities where the gaming facilities are. It's an open meetings law, and they have public hearings and they have open meetings. So that's what they defined as what they're doing for each CAC process.
Thank you. We've got a lot of questions. Let's get the committees first. We'll go quickly to the committee. Paul,
Thanks, Stephen. Great to see you again. Appreciate it for the time. It's a complicated issue. A couple of statements, a couple of questions for you. I'm kind of echoing JD's position that it seems odd that we're asking the community boards to take away our voice from the process when that's what our mandate is to have a voice in every process. So I'm going to be interested to find out a little bit more about that. You know, one of the criteria for the CAC is the local siting impact. That's a listed criteria that they need to meet. So I would think the local siting impact is input from community boards and the community representation rather than just the 6 elected officials from there. Let's open up the whole process.
Doesn't say that.
Scale. This,
It does not say
it
that.
says local siting impact. That's
That's
what
what it
they
says.
have. And I'm making statements now, not questions. All right. So but that's my feeling on how that's being done is we are the local siting impact discussion, in my opinion. All right. So the question that the scheduling from the state, that's also something I think we want to have a discussion with the state about. Can we extend that timeline? And rather than usurp the ULURP, let's have a longer time and talk to the state as an option, rather than saying we're going to do a citywide zoning text amendment because we're feeling the crunch of time, let's ask the state for more time, and then we can go through a full ULURP process rather than the zoning text amendment. But 2 questions I want to ask. If all 3 of the CAC applications, all the applications are all denied by these CACs, so there are 9 right now across the city. Let's say all of them get denied. Then a year from now, there are going to be 3 new applications. They can go into any one of those Cs 6, 7, 8, and N1, 2, 3s, correct?
Yes.
So if everyone is denied, including the ones at Aqueduct and Yonkers in the downstate region, then the state would have to make a decision as to what they're going to do with those 3 licenses.
But the way the zoning text amendment is written, if any one of those 3 is denied, if there's only 2 are approved and there's 1 left, but all of them are denied in New York City, or in Manhattan particularly, where we're concerned, that remaining license could go into a different C 4, 5, 6, 7, 2, 3 across the entire city based on the zoning system, correct?
If the state says they're gonna, I think, you know, I'm not 100% on that. I don't know for sure, so I don't want to give you a definitive answer,
Okay.
but, I'll look into that and get back to you on that, because I don't want to say either way, but it's my understanding that they want to give up, they want to get rid of these licenses because it brings in money
Yeah.
to the state. So I think if there's any opportunity, they're gonna try to keep the license
But
up.
I'm sort of following the thread you presented of this zoning text amendment is only for these 3 licenses.
That's right.
And we're not going to see another application come forward.
Sure,
And
I
there is
understand.
a scenario where another application could come forward.
If 2 were awarded and 1's
So,
not,
if two of them
If there's
were,
one
one's
left.
not,
they would definitely come back.
and it can go to lower Manhattan, so on your map, it shows a lot of neutral 4, 5, 6 zones. So I'm a little bit concerned about that aspect. And then another question is, do you have an understanding why gaming facilities were not ever included in the zoning? Like it was, you're saying, you're coming to us saying,
Originally.
it's never been in here before, we're putting it in now. We know why it's coming now, because there's a.
You know, I'm not sure why they took it out, because there used to be gambling facilities years and years and years ago.
But
I mean, maybe there was a morality thing with it back 100 years ago, but I can't speak to that definitively, why they did not include.
When did they take it out of the zoning resolution?
I don't think it ever was in.
Right, it was never, it was never, it's not a legal use in the state of New York until recently.
The state made it kosher back in 2012 when you had the state referendum and people voted for it.
Right, thank you.
Thank you, Paul. Richard?
Hi, thank you for the presentation.
Sure.
I have 3 questions.
Sure.
And both me about the proposal. So the last sentence in the proposed amendment, states that once approved by the gaming commission, the facilities seem to be in compliance.
That's
Am I
right.
understanding that correctly?
Yeah.
So are there any measures that will be in place to ensure that it will be in compliance ongoingly?
I'm sorry, what did you say, ongoing? What did,
Are there any measures to ensure that?
so the compliance is whatever is improved by the CAC. So, you know, I'm gonna give an outrageous example. Say one of the facilities proposed in your community district, they want, you know, 10 gazillion feet and they wanna go up to 2,000 feet in height. There's no way that's gonna get through the CAC. Even if people want a gaming facility, they're gonna chop it down. I would imagine most community districts are gonna look at their existing regulations. You know, Coney Island is gonna look at the fact that their building height in some area is, you know, 80 feet. And maybe the developer's proposing 90 feet, or maybe the developer's proposing 900 feet. So that's kind of like the bar I think people are gonna be comparing the proposal with. You know, I know there's a lot of issues with parking, right? So if a facility is proposing, you know, 5,000 parking spaces in Midtown Manhattan, I just, you know, it's just not gonna.
But your text currently says shall be deemed compliant.
That's right.
So if in fact, the steps go CAC and Gaming Commission, and they approve a 1,200-foot tower with 800 parking spaces, you are saying that's compliant, so you are ceding your review to the CAC and the Gaming Commission.
Yes,
And it's only 4 members that have to decide.
4 members, yeah.
So
four
Why would the
two-thirds.
city of New York, I'm sorry, why would the city of New York cede its review on its own zoning regulations to a very tiny body, as opposed to the raucous public process that happens through Euler?
So we see the public process being the CAC.
I got it, but I'm saying that the public process that happens through Euler involves a 15-member city planning commission, a city council of 51 members, all these various push and pull levels of government. You would say that irrespective of the use, I understand about the use part, right? You want to put the use in place to make it non-public, public reviewable. Why would you see all the zoning regulations around how the use is developed to a completely non-technical, non-informed, non-professional group to say you can have a 100-foot street wall, you can have 500 parking spaces? You do not believe that is also leaving this project open to major like litigation?
So,
Like if you can't enter district.
so every time somebody goes through the city council member, your local city council member reviews it and sees what the community says about the application.
But the entire council votes on it, that's the
Right.
difference. So Rachel was the last one.
That's
Yeah, all right.
The second question actually goes to a little bit of the heart of perhaps what might be the community concern. So you mentioned the proposal amendment allows gaming and non-gaming uses related to gaming.
That's right.
And perhaps maybe from areas where there have been gaming facilities like the one leading from the Florida State, have there been impacts to the surrounding neighborhood that we should be aware of?
So I don't know what the impacts are for the 4 that have been approved upstate. That would be a good question to ask the state. But I'm not aware of any, the one in Queens, it's like I said, it's automated. They have a racetrack, but the gaming is automated, so I'm not sure how
The
that.
last one's not directly pertaining to this, but just curiosity generally, so you mentioned some benefits in your presentation considering, what that are considered in the application process, such as economic job growth. And have there been any thoughts about sending some of the proceeds or taxes to benefit the surrounding communities, or, the real poverty, set aside some of the portions for.
So I think that would be, I mean, that's exactly the type of thing that you would discuss with the community board to put in your resolution related to the application. You know, any fund, if this passes in the, under the condition, money has to go to the community for these X things, or we want more affordable housing, or we want better streets, or whatever. You know, that's a great idea to put in your resolution.
Okay, Rachel, Dolores, and Chris?
I'm just gonna echo what you're already hearing. You know, shame on city planning to advocate everything to the state. You literally are just giving away any opportunity for what has been fought for by city planning, but more importantly, it's been fought for by each community that is defined what is appropriate for the communities. These additional uses that Rachel brought up, hotels were one of them. And if you haven't noticed here in Midtown, we have a lot of hotels, some of which just happen to slip in cracks in the zoning. So we fought to fill those cracks so that we actually have more housing, particularly affordable housing. So I'm gonna ask you a question. You're going around to every single community board and presenting, and you're looking for community boards to weigh in. Can you explain to the public exactly how this text amendment actually passes? And what is the case that if it doesn't pass, what do we do then as a city?
Well, first of all, if it doesn't get through city council, if it doesn't get through the CPC or the city council, then there's no use in the city. For
I'm
gaming.
not talking about specific sites, I'm talking about this text amendment that you are presenting. So if you can explain to the public, who's actually going to go ahead and vote on this text amendment, just so the public understands? And what is the process by which there is a community opportunity to say, we do not want this text amendment?
So I'm not exactly sure what you're asking, because the reason I'm here is to get input from you. So we're hearing from you, and then this CPC will then hear what you have to say about how city planning neglects their job. And then if CPC approves it, if they don't approve it, then it's done.
Right.
If CPC approves it with any mods or with no mods, changes to it, then that would go to the city council. And then the council member Botcher will get a chance to review it, and apparently, you know, I don't know what you think about the council member, but I would assume he would come back and see what you guys said about it, because that's how every other project I've worked with council member Botcher is done. And then if they pass it, or they make mods, right? So, you know, for example, if we propose to put them in R10 districts, and he's like, no R10 district, take that out, you know, we'll take it out, you know, if it gets through that stage.
So what's the scenario? If city council does not approve this, if the state continues a process by which trying to bring 3 licenses downstate?
If it doesn't approve, then there's no
Yes,
There's
there
no
is.
use.
Yes, there is. Each developer can go, if they're awarded a license, and go through a normal public review process to cite their casino
Exactly,
and propose a text amendment for that location.
exactly.
So in addition to that, they can do GPP.
Right, the state,
There's different ways that you can
right,
get around it, but then those developers would then have to go through the process.
Thank you. You actually said what I was hoping to say. There's ways to get around it. That's what this is doing. This is trying to get around a very clean, clear public process for understanding what should or shouldn't be in certain areas. And you're trying to additionally put one size fits all, which has been the trend du jour for the last couple of administrations, where it's a text amendment for the entire city, when we are not a monolith. So I'm just making these statements because the concern here, again, is coming back to JD's very first question. Why would a actual agency of the city, a community board, which has only one real mandate, which is opining on land use being available for the public on land use issues, why would we say, let a 6-body representation go ahead and make a decision, and then narrow that down to a 4-body state representation? It makes no sense.
Doris, to follow up on your question,
It
essentially,
wasn't, it was just a comment.
I'm sorry, your comment is essentially,
Yeah,
how we're going to vote tonight is not binding on.
On the text amendment, it's.
It's not binding.
you know, our recommendations are included in the normal text amendment process, going through everything.
Right, but they still go ahead and
They can agree. No, but the point is, JD, any ULURP we do, whatever is put into writing, it's part of the normal process.
This
Yeah.
is the standard public review process. This is a public open meeting. It's going out to the city. And you guys vote on it, put in conditions or no conditions. There's also a range of things you could be looking at. Apart from a hard yes or a hard no. You could say, well, maybe it's okay to have a gaming facility out in Aqueduct. Or somewhere around Aqueduct, or maybe it's okay to have it somewhere else.
But that's
Or
not-
maybe it's okay to have it here. Maybe you want it in your community, but not in where they're being proposed. It's, I mean, that's totally up to you to decide.
Thank you, Steve.
Just a quick clarification.
Sure.
Laura said that, made a statement, you're representing all community districts across the city, but that's not true, is it? You're only presenting places where
There's a current
the
proposal.
current.
I'm presenting to everywhere there's the nine are.
The 9, so you're, how many districts is that in total?
So there's 3 in Manhattan, 1 in Brooklyn, 1 in the Bronx, and the Queens,
The 2 districts.
it's in 7, but it's in a park. By Wheelet's in the parking lot, so I think 3 and 4 are also gonna hear it
So
because it's
7 of the 50 communities. 50.
approximately. But then there are a couple of specifically requested them, and we're not trying to discourage them, but we tell them there's a proposal in your neighborhood, but a couple of those I will be going to. But that's not all 59.
okay, thank you for that.
Other questions, Joe?
Lots of questions. You mentioned GPP. Could you just give us a quick summary of what GPP is?
So the state has a thing called the general project plan that they've done around Penn Station, around Moynihan, around Atlantic Center in Brooklyn, number of different places. And that's also a way for the state to control, it's the World Trade Center site, to control development of a specific area and get around certain zoning regulations and certain ordinances that would ordinarily go through the process. And we saw that most recently around here with the Penn GPP, and they have to get a approval from the local zoning board. And then we give them, the CPC would then give them recommendations as what to do, what they think they should do.
Okay, thank you. Now, the next question is, and I want to thank Paul and Dolores for bringing this up. You're asking 7 of the 59 community boards to opine on a text amendment. But there are 51 council members. And so you're pretty much, without going citywide, you're restricting information just to the directly affected, if you will,
possibly affected.
community boards, but the city, the mayor and the speaker fully expects council members and who are not educated on this to vote on this text amendment.
So we've briefed a number of different council members, VPs. We're going to a couple borough boards and we're briefing whoever wants to be briefed. And
So it's an opt-in. Briefings are opt-in, unless you target somebody, let's say Salamanca, who runs land use and building in city council. So you're obviously gonna speak to him, right? And there's no.
so it would go, if it gets through the CPC and is approved by the CPC with or without mods, we would brief the land use committee and the zoning committee at city.
Now, thank you. So lastly, this, like, what are we calling community advisory council?
Committee.
Yeah.
It's like the cat went.
Yeah, there's six. There are six elected officials who will be represented on these CACs and on these CACs. But if I'm correct, we pretty much have two strongman governments here in the state and here in the city. Both the senator, the assembly member, the borough president, and the council member all pretty much push the majority of the legislation and budgetary process through negotiations with the speaker, the mayor, and the governor's office, right? So in theory, if someone really wants something to be cited as a casino, all there needs to be is pressure from the executive body on these elected officials, and they'll vote the way that they're told, and they won't represent the community, which we represent. So this text amendment is eliminating part of the democratic process and turning it into the new version of 3 men in a room.
So that's what the state established as the citing review process.
You're fine with that.
In order for us to get through these applications and get the possibility for each community to consider these, this is what we have to do.
So removing the democratic process is the thing that you're fine with. Thank you.
One clarification, borough board, so all the Manhattan community boards will vote. Is that correct?
The minute, so tomorrow morning, I'm briefing the,
Tomorrow morning's our report.
so we'll see what happens there. We have, frankly, it hasn't been 100, and we need to talk to the law department about the vote and who can vote and who's voting on those.
Yeah, so
So-
I mean, that's an important, 4, 5, and 6 is directly concerned, but the other community boards are also going to weigh in on this. Is that correct at borough board?
So it's up to the community board if they want to weigh in on it or not, because if they have the C and M districts in their area, which I imagine most do, they could, I mean, they can help hold, their committee meeting and have a public hearing on it and go forward with it. Whether they want to.
Clarification on that, that's at some point, if this goes to the borough board, you all agree.
All the
Members, community boards and then vote on this?
Yes.
The borough doesn't want to vote. Borough board resolution. Because it overlaps in the.
So essentially, community boards who are not really gonna get, they will vote on our future. For it's kind of curious.
Or more importantly, they have been briefed on it, and they are going to have an opportunity if their board has already taken a position. Go ahead, I'm sorry.
Yes.
I just want to flag it that we're at almost 7:30, there's 30 people online, but I can't.
Great, and we want to hear from everybody. Joe?
Yeah, so, nice to see you. Shane on entire Department of City Planning and City Planning Commission. This is certified the day of Thanksgiving, so it's considered over Thanksgiving, Christmas holiday, and the New Year's holiday for us to act, right? The fact that the timing on this, and it's a removal of a public review process, because any casino operator of those 9 would have to come and go through a public review process. And then you certify this at this point in time, when we've known about this since early in 23, right? means that, to me, it is merely, this mayoral administration is not interested in real, absolute public review. The name of public review, the feel of it, the look, that's what it seems to be very engaged with. Just want to say that to you, because I know you a long time, I find this to be embarrassing, right? The second thing is, it's one thing to say you want to put something in place to allow the gaming or gaming facility use in order to help the state go through its process. But to say that as part of this, you will cede the city planning commissions and the department's authority on zoning compliance and what should be used or not used, I don't even know how to begin to respond to that. You are saying that in our district, we have one on the Western Rail Yards, that could be a major modification that has to go through you, no question. But the Silverstein site could say, I want to build building of 140 stories. I want to have a huge base. I want to have this, which is all non-compliant. And by the way, 1,000 spot parking garage. And you, as a city planning, new city planning would say, let these 6 people decide that's okay, and it's going to be compliant. You don't find that curious, considering your tenure at city planning and our tenure and working in our communities, that would be something that would be just fine? There's not even a question at all about ceding that level of authority. I've never met a city planning commission. So to Dan Garodnick, chair, like, again, shame on you. Like, why would you give up that authority? Just a quick response on that, and I want to.
So it's just a function of the city being able to get through these applications, because we can't get through them in the amount of time that the state gave us. So the administration believes that could be benefits, and some communities might want these in their neighborhood. So this is how.
I didn't say that. I didn't say the use, not the use. I said what the build out of a site looks like and feels like. You've given up any review over any zoning regulation of it. That I find surprising.
Joe, and the city council has as well.
No, not the city council as well.
Chair of the city council is also, sir.
Okay, well, so let me come to that issue in a moment. The second thing is, you mentioned Hudson Yards, right? Now, you have a mistake. In your bullets, you say within districts 1 to 8, parking spaces shall be governed by the parking provisions of Manhattan for off-street parking, right? However, there was a major piece of litigation in Hudson Yards that limited the number of parking spaces as part of the environmental impact. And those parking spots are capped, and it's only a 1-for-1 swap. This does not govern in Hudson Yards.
So I think you might have an incorrect version of it. There's nothing in the project description that should be related to Manhattan core parking.
That's what it says right here, Manhattan core off-street parking.
I think there was an issue with an earlier version that went up on the website. That was the incorrect version. There's nothing related to, and that part was not supposed to be in there.
So take that out, irrespective. You just said that if someone wants a 600 spot parking garage, they could not get one in our district because there's a lawsuit settlement that dates back to like 2010 or something. Can you not reflect that in your information here?
So our understanding is that if the CAC approves, that overrides the zoning regulations.
It's not a zoning regulation. It's a settlement between the Corp Council and an environmental group that was done after Hudson Yards was mapped. It is not the zoning regulations.
So
they had to make a settlement.
Right.
And then they embodied it in a piece of text. You're going to tell us that you're going to override a text that was part of a settlement?
So in particular to the one application, or excuse me, the one proposal for a gaming facility, they will be looking at what's existing in the Hudson Yards pipeline. In the Hudson Yards 1 proposal, they have applications in. They're in the queue for the Hudson Yards parking spaces.
Correct, right, Hudson Yards parking spaces, right?
Yeah.
So the issue we have here is this is a major issue that happened. So again, I just want to highlight it. We're going to highlight it to you in general. The last part though is you said for the Western Rail Yards, they have to go through Euler because that's a major site plan that's adopted, right? I think the biggest issue we have here as a community and committee is that there's clearly a deal that's been made with hotel trades union, the mayor and the governor. This has nothing to do with zoning. This is a political deal that's been spun out there, and we have to make sure that our council member and our state senator and our president and our state and our assembly member understand that, of course, they should be working with the hotel trade union to do things, but you should not do this at the expense of public review, and that's goddamn embarrassing. Like, I just find it embarrassing. They're always an element. The unions are always an element. God damn, we want the unions in, we support them, we work with them, we engage with stuff. But this feels like a totally cooked deal. And the fact that you released it the day, it was supposed to be part of the city of yes, it was pulled out. The current one we had in front of us was pulled out the day of Thanksgiving. I give you credit for actually coming in person. Presenting it. I mean that seriously, because you're a decent public servant, working for years, and you're direct.
So this application has a 60-day referral?
Yes.
So you have until February 5th to
Correct.
put in your recommendation resolution, and then if you need to exceed that, we will accept.
Right, but normally you would not certify things the day of Thanksgiving in the holiday season.
So there are many issues. This always happens around the summertime and around
Right,
holidays.
You
There's
said it
that-
in August and you said it.
So if we did it, at the last review session, people would say, how could you do this before the end of the year and the holidays? If we do it before summer break, then people get mad. It's sometimes you're in a situation where, you're in trouble.
How could you do this anytime? No, but thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Ted, the ring as well, committee member, any questions that have any questions that you said?
God bless.
You've been patient, you've been patient. I'm gonna start with. We have a sign in.
Didn't think of one line, right?
Can I just ask the public that's here present, can they move, I know it's weird, but can you move up closer to them so you can make sure the next pick up the question?
These 20 things are one. So I don't have a question. I'm going to read the statement. Years I represent the West Ways and Ways to Cross Solution. So having said that, thank you very much for the presentation. So the proposed zoning text amendment as presented will deprive citizens, the community board, from commenting on land use proposals. If this zoning text amendment is approved as it pertains to citywide cleaning facilities, where will it end? Next month, there will be another special interest group wanting to bypass all the important European matters. If one group gets approved, how can you say no to another? We're living in times where it seems each day some states take away rights from its citizens. Let's not be one of those states or cities. So I urge my land use committee to vote no for whatever good that does, listening to all of this. So thank you.
Thank you. Are you here? You saying it well, come on. Yes.
Did you sign up to speak? There's a sign sheet.
Well, we didn't have those, these people, they all get on.
You said everything, you asked all the questions I was going to answer. It's simple one, we don't think there's no rules. You do.
Yes.
Thank you. Okay. Sir, raise your hand.
Yeah.
Matt, come up and then.
Yeah, I guess.
That's the line.
That's my still.
So, I was moved to come out on a busy holiday week. The more I think about this, the more surreal it is. That, even if there is a gap in the process, why not just fill it with the process, even if it's a little bit shorter than what we already have, which is your. And, I think that when you start to think about this, you start to become concerned about, well, system knows under the 10 things that can come next, not just uses or erstwhile things. You don't have to look that far. You just look at this and you think, yeah, it's already, you've got a truck driven through it with hotels. And, I don't know if anybody ever stopped and looked at the projects that, Deputy Mayor Dan Doctor used to do, try and get through. If you'd have had a small group of people that hadn't thought out those unintended consequences, whatever that is, those technical issues, we'd be tripping over the legacy of bad ideas and bad implementation today, whether it's traffic, transit, the technical considerations without the ground infrastructure. The more I think about this, it is without debating casinos, it is the most silly idea that I can think of in city planning. I encourage the committee to strongly, vote against it.
Matt, thank you very much. That's a low bar. Good ideas from me. Fine, but point yourself, like, well,
Deanne Cox, so I just don't understand. Of course, I think you're all gonna vote no on this, but then what happens, just it's the text amendment, does it have to be voted on 51 of the. Oh, well, then it just makes it easy for all the other 51 to say, oh, it's all fine with us, because they don't want it in their community. So how is that? Not that they would, but.
yeah.
You know, that it's not we're not representing them. Oh, so we're not, but in answer to my question, if you guys vote no today, that's just one vote of a no to this, to do away with this text amendment.
Out of 59 community boards.
Okay, wow.
We are so lucky. Yes, sir. Welcome. Thank you, David.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks so much for your presentation. Now, I'm gonna ask you something somewhat relates to the gentleman in the excellent sweater there, I have to say. Where I lost for taillights was the slide where you lay out all of the potential sites where there are, it looks like there's active applications either in or expected, which would lead to proposals and so forth.
That's right.
I don't understand, and I'm recovering your way, this procedural decision-making process. You've got 6 people, 2 of whom have statewide and citywide responsibility, the governor and the mayor. Then you have 4 people who have limited jurisdictional responsibilities. Now, Eric Botcher, who I have great esteem for, what does he know about the needs of Ferry Point? What does the assemblyman know about why the Chickasaw Nation has an interest in Coney Island? And so forth and so on. So I don't quite understand the mapping or the allocation of responsibility as it relates to community knowledge, whether it's environmental or cultural or anything else. It's a little Alice in Wonderland to lay people.
Thank you, sir.
Can I answer a question?
Yes, of course.
So there's 2 things here. There's the citywide text amendment, which you guys are looking at today and gonna vote on. And then there's the state process with the CAC. Nobody here will have a vote or be able to review what's going on in Coney Island for that gaming facility. And then nobody in Coney Island is gonna be able to look at what could possibly be built here for a gaming facility. The text amendment, though, is citywide. That's where everybody has a say in the process.
So let me just say it again. There'd be a difference. Let's say the Ferry Point one was approved. The CAC would include the local elected officials up there. If one is approved for here, it includes the local elected officials here. So we don't have to know anything about Ferry Point because we'd never even be talking about it.
Any of the 3 sites contingent
Right.
contiguous.
It's a different CAC that gets put together. It gets put together depending upon if a site is chosen.
And what that enables is if the Bronx neighborhood wants a gaming facility, they can have it. If they don't, they don't. And the same for you guys. If you want it, you can review it. If you don't.
But if everyone says no, then we don't have it.
If the CAC, if this passes, and then the CAC says no, it doesn't advance. If this zoning text amendment, which we're here for tonight, is approved as is, which hasn't been determined yet, but if it's approved, then the use is acceptable in the city. And the text says whatever gets approved by the CAC and the Gaming Facilities Location Board is deemed okay with the
Use
zone.
is approved subject to those other public processes.
I'm sorry, what?
The use is approved as an as-of-right use, and then there will be a CAC convened in wherever their site is approved.
That's right. Except for the 4 applications, which have separate actions.
Thank you, Joe. Yes, sir.
Hi, I'm Lee Shepherd. I came here thinking was gonna be about whether or not we have a casino, and now it's whether or not we're gonna have a democracy. Which sounds pretty familiar today, but I've got nothing good to say about casinos. I was in living in Connecticut about 20 years, and they tried to do it in Bridgeport. I did some studying on that and found that all the benefits they talk about don't happen. And money goes where no one seems to know. And but this is nuts. I admire your abilities to talk about, stand up there and ask this stuff. You take it like a man, but it's just absurd. So I think I probably agree with most people here. And thank you.
I think you should write a letter. You can add on.
If you go to letter, it's less.
Yes.
I'm just on that, making sure that we're done.
Are there any other here? Okay.
Online.
We have online.
Online?
Janine, do you want to bring folks over? Who raise their hands? I'll
David's coming up.
make an announcement for anybody that's online that would like to provide comment on the presentation and the text amendment or proposed text amendments, and they should raise their virtual hand and they will be brought over. And they'll be given a chance to speak.
Jesse, there's a time for them to speak.
Typically, like, how many hands? Well, how many hands there is? I'll tell you in a second, we have only one so far. Yeah, let's try to keep it to a few minutes.
Yeah.
Right?
There are 20.
Yeah. That one. We still got one. So, David, you want to go ahead? You're on mute. You're on mute, David.
How about now? Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Take two. Good evening, everyone. I'm David Corman speaking for myself. I've lived in Hell's Kitchen since 1987. It's completely unacceptable to remove gaming facilities from the ULURP process. ULURP was created as part of the 1975 revision of the New York City Charter to democratize the planning process, to allow public review. We should not go back to the days of Robert Moses, where communities were shut out of important planning decisions that shaped their neighborhoods. The so-called Community Advisory Committee, it doesn't make it so because it has community in the name, with its 6 members would not take the place of ULURP. The community is not at the table. If I understand it right, the proposed amendment would leave out the professionals at city planning too, which is nuts. I urge CB4 to reject DCP's heavy-handed, undemocratic proposed gaming facility zoning text amendment. Thank you.
Okay.
Next.
Janine, do you want to name out who's next?
Sylvie?
Hi, thank you. Oh, sorry, one second. Hi, yes, this is Sylvie Preston Gordon. I am a lifetime community member of Hell's Kitchen, proudly born and raised. I, along with everyone else in this room, would also urge our fabulous, passionate, hardworking board to vote no on this. And I too am very shocked and disappointed by the state's actions. I do not think that we should be this desperate for money, because look at what is coming and knocking on our door. I do not think this is good for our community. I do not think it is good for our elderly, for our young, for our children, for anything at all. And that is an inarticulate way of expressing how it is I feel about this. I do not support it. I think that many members of my community do not support it, and we'll see what happens. It's scary.
Aletta?
Hi, my name is My name is Alita Lafargue. I'm the president of the Manhattan Plaza Tenants Association, but I am speaking for myself tonight as also a lifelong Hell's Kitchen community member. I'd just like to thank Chris, Paul, Dolores, JD, and Joe for speaking so eloquently about this issue and helping to inform anybody who signed in and who might be a little bit confused about exactly what's going on, because I think things are happening behind the scenes so quickly and it's hard to keep up as a busy mother and, just person who's trying to live their daily life. But I think that it's really important that we all come together and stay informed at this end run that's happening around a community process that we've all come to really respect. And thank you again to the board for having our backs. Definitely encourage you all to vote no.
Susan?
Hi, apologies, I'm not feeling very well tonight, but I want to support everything that everyone has said tonight. I think everybody has been amazing in their thoughts, and I agree 100% with everything that was said. I think the one question I would have is I would like to understand when the state has built the revenues into their budget. And I feel like we're being driven by the state's budget, whether it's cannabis, whether it's gaming facilities, because I don't think that they're going to be able to meet their expenses that they currently have without ramming these things through. And we can see exactly what happens to our community when the state rams things through for revenue purposes. And we just have to look at the cannabis stores. Thank you.
Thank you, Susan.
Laura?
Do we have an answer to that, whether it's in the state budget already?
Whether what is in the state budget?
The revenue from the
Revenue from
casinos.
Selling casino
I
licenses.
don't think so, but I'm not sure about that. That's something you could ask the state, but I'm sure they're looking for revenue.
Laura, go ahead.
Hi, thank you all for your time. I'm also a proud resident and community member of the Hell's Kitchen area, and I second a lot of what has been said. There's very grave concerns about not being able to have input, about not having the professionals in the planning and land use be able to put their input in terms of how this will affect everybody. And so I also greatly urge a no vote. Thank you for your time and thank you all for your service. I appreciate you all.
That's all the folks, hand raised, folks that have raised their hands. Is there anyone else that's in the attendees that would like to speak? Please raise your hand. That is it.
We got you. Thank you all. Thank you, everyone.
Well done.
We're not finished yet.
Not finished yet. Well, I have a quick question. I'm a current person, you probably heard everybody here. I'm slow. Does this have to do with the fact that we aren't getting any federal money, all our extra refugees coming in that we have to take care of?
No, it's separate.
Okay.
I want to thank everybody for this discussion tonight. It's very important. So we have other items, but before we get to those other items, does somebody want to make a motion?
I'd like to make a motion. My motion is that we vote no against this proposal, citing that this proposal takes away the community process, which is part of the mandate for a community board. We have also additional items that we can list of why we're concerned, being very specific on what this actual process takes away from the community's ability to voice its needs. And to point out that the bodies that are making decisions are ones that may not know the community best and may not understand the entire process. And I have both the CAC as well as the state gaming commission who makes that decision on the ultimate ordinance.
One thing, the people who are going to vote on the community boards that are not in state.
Oh, yes, and community boards that are not impacted.
That's kind of unfair.
Not on a citywide text amendment. Yes, all community boards vote on citywide text amendments always.
Right. It doesn't affect.
But
It
they
only affects.
I think it's more significant, JD, that they're not informed.
they're not, yeah, I think the issue is not about the boards voting, it's that there has been no adequate, proper presentation and discussion
Across the entire-
across the entire city on this, because community boards may vote differently if they were fully educated.
That's right.
So I like to add
Yeah,
couple more things.
You got a
One,
motion, Joe?
no, add a couple more things to that. One is,
I'll second it.
Thank you. Now then.
yes, so for amendments to the motion, I'd like to also note that we are totally against the idea of taking out any of the professionals at Department of City Planning or City Planning Commission to speak to zoning regulations, compliance. The idea that those 6 folks sitting in a room who have no information or are making a decision based upon input from the Hotel Trades Council, that just is a bad bit of city business policy, right? The second thing is,
Joe, so
Wait, is that?
city planning should be on the.
no.
We're taking on,
This professional text amendment takes all the professionals who know about zoning and planning out of the approval process.
So that's one of the specifics.
That's one of the specifics, right? The next specific is, I want to bring up and highlight it and write it carefully, is Hudson Yards, parking settlement. And the idea that somehow that could be overridden is crazy land. And all I want to do is let's get the plaintiffs engaged with that as issue.
Can I ask a question about that? This again, friendly amendments, first one's fine, the second one, my concern is just because we are not addressing casinos specifically.
Oh, no, this amendment says that once that, this text says, if the CAC approves it, it's deemed zoning compliant. So we need to know.
So the reason why I'm asking you to tweak that instead of having to litigate all of what we did to make sure that the parking was capped, and instead clarify that compliance needs to be, there needs to be very clear understanding that compliant needs to also comply with.
Compliance with legal settlements.
Exactly.
Something like that.
So I
So it's
think
great.
we could get into the specifics.
No, I
of
get,
what
I mean,
this-
you can cite it to give a reference.
So crazy, I hear you said a technical judgment.
Yeah, the idea that there's even a discussion about you can't comply with.
Sorry, we're in the queue, I mentioned there.
No, I know they're in the queue, but you mentioned that someone could
It's a risk.
propose
It's a
a
risk.
500 seat thing. It's a risk. You know, people in a room at 2:30 in the morning don't really remember what happened. That's what I've learned.
Okay, I accept your amendment.
So anybody else want to add to this? We have a motion.
Shame. No?
And hello.
And we want to thank Stephen for
So much.
being
Would you vote?
very good about it.
We have to vote, but I do want to know,
Since I'm adding that to the letter.
he's the first city planning human being you've seen
Yeah.
since 2020. So thank you for coming in person, as opposed to thinking everyone can sit on in their living rooms and not like we have to sit in a hot community.
Well, I thought I was just having hot flash.
He's got a jacket, a sweater, vest.
Yeah.
We appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Comment that being the letter too. Any other changes? All in favor of the letter? I'm sorry, Jackson.
No one's online, just right
now. Anybody opposed? Thank you.
Oh, can you just repeat that clearly, but loudly and the motion to deny the zoning text amendment with the conditions and stipulations as passed unanimously by this committee.
Honestly,
We say strongly deny.
I think we're engaged.
Unanimously denies.
But thank you all. We have 2 more items, Paul.
Just 2 more things.
Thank you.
thank you.
Thank you, Stephen.
2 more just quick updates for people. The City of Yes Economic Opportunity, we discussed this at our last land use meeting. We sent in a 3-page list of questions. DCB very quickly responded and sent us a response today. So we all, for committee members, it's in Dropbox. We'll go through those questions again at the next land use committee meeting. So next month's meeting, we'll go through. We tried to take everyone's questions that were raised at the meeting and incorporate in the letter, so please go into Dropbox, read the letter. It's long, because they have long answers, but look for your questions, and if they feel that they've answered your question adequately, so that we can prepare to have a more robust conversation next month.
Because our response will go to the February full board.
Yeah, I was gonna say that.
Sorry.
So our response is gonna go to the February board meeting. So we'll write our letter after next month's meeting. It'll go to the report. It does extend beyond the 60-day period, as Steve pointed out with this zoning fix amendment. They're giving us some grace period to get our comments in. So be prepared for that.
Sorry, you should be prepared, but you want us to go into the Dropbox and actually go through it, and are we providing comments to you co-chairs by a certain time?
You want to send this in advance, and we like to formulate some thoughts and opinions, because it's dense, it's complex. And if there's pieces in there that aren't your questions, and just,
Okay, I just want to understand the homework, so.
Homework is
You
not.
don't need to send anything to you, just make sure you prepared by the next.
Be prepared for the next meeting, correct. Thank you. And then we want to get an update on the FAQ that's being developed with some folks.
Sure, okay, update. So, we're currently working on a frequently asked questions page on the CB4 website, like beyond the special, district page addressing what rights or special protections residents of the special district have against demolition of the building under the zoning regulation. So some of the questions, just to give you an idea, include how much of the building has to be altered or removed for these units to kick in? What areas are included in the special district? What is tenant harassment, and how does it relate to construction or demolition on building? What steps can I take if no one is harassing me or if a tour? If a tenant is harassing me. So anything you want to add to that?
Yeah, I mean, I'll cover all the main points. We got those questions. We're looking at Joe's planner, Max, who's helping us. There you are.
We'll circulate once we have a full draft for committee discussion. If any of the public members have any specific questions you would like to see on the frequently asked questions list, please send them over.
Sure, yeah, just so I get out of with myself and Matt. We're now just like editing.
That's great. I love it. Things are moving along.
Yes.
That's right. Maybe we should do it for Chelsea.
That's a good.
Yeah. Can we talk about an idea of having a public meeting about casinos?
Yeah.
Paul. Yes.
No, before the.
Yeah, I mentioned that at the outset of the meeting. I'm sorry. Yeah, so this is, and I'll repeat it, so I'm happy to. It's a very contentious, fraught issue. And so the board, community board does not have a position on casinos, but we want to hear input from the community on the impacts of impact of casinos on our communities as we go through this process. And tonight is a perfect example of, there are a lot of things going on in the background that not everybody is aware of. So we just want to make sure that the public is in tune. And I've asked the chair-elect to help work with us on, and our kitchen manager to help coordinate some activities in the upcoming months.
And we are aware of what's going on.
Keep your eyes and ears open.
I just think the crystal comment from tonight from the public was, I thought I was coming here tonight, a vote about casinos. I didn't know I was coming here about a vote on Fox.
Yeah.
Perfect.
That was like the moment of like, yep.
I think it's the word.
Motion to adjourn.
Thank you guys, Janine, and the tech support in the back that nobody was that. Thank you.
So, yes. I didn't hear the board that.
I am having my lunch.
I'm like, it's like literally.
The first
Okay.
half hour.
Sure. Once, that's right.
No, the first half, I thought I was waiting.